The United States is number one in its military power, number one in its economic and technological power, but we are also number one in the highest incarceration rates in the world. Mass incarceration is a systematic combination of historical, social, and political components. However, its practices and effects have been highly debated. Having read multiple articles on mass incarceration, like that of Doing the Right and the Good, Thinking Against Mass Incarceration, published in 2022, and From Mass Incarceration to Mass Coercion, published in 2019, watching multiple videos and documentaries about the matter, and having reviewed other scholarly and credible sources, and taking an ethnic studies class where we read, learned, and have had multiple assessments on the matter, I now have a better understanding of both sides of the issue. First, I will describe what mass incarceration is and its effects. Secondly, I'll describe the arguments in support of mass incarceration. And third, I will share the arguments against mass incarceration. To start, I'll define what mass incarceration is and its massive impact in our society. The United States incarcerates more people than any nation in the entire world, because mass incarceration is rooted in our historical events. According to Vera, an article that describes American history, race, and prison, the growth of imprisonment in the United States is a deliberate policy. Prisons in this country are entwined with the legacy of slavery and the generations of racial and social justice. Inequitable treatment has its roots in the correctional eras that came before it, each one building on the last, leading to the prison landscape that we face today. Alongside that, post-civil rights era and the war on drugs and expansions of private prisons are all historical events that enabled mass incarceration. The end of the Civil War and the passage of the 13th Amendment also triggered the nation's first prison boom when the number of Black Americans incarcerated surged. The war on drugs imposed harsh punishment on drug offenses, resulting in significant rises in massive incarceration. Private prisons and the increase of prisons in massive eras also played a role in the increase of massive incarcerated people through business incentives. Mass incarceration is also strengthened by political elements. According to Time magazine's Politicians' Tough on Crime Messaging Could Have Devastating Consequences, it details that the political policies, movements fuel mass incarceration. Mass imprisonment impacted the political system, marginalizing millions of Americans due to criminal convictions. Political campaigns and rhetoric that appeal to tough on crime stances appeal to public safety that alter the way individuals look at crime. Politicians, lawmakers, and policymakers have a tremendous impact on the laws and policies that revolve around crime and punishment. Bail reform, police reform, and parole reform, and sentencing reform are all being blamed for the rise of crime, says Time magazine. Laws and policies like tough on crime rhetoric are all contributors to mass incarceration in the United States. And last, mass incarceration connects with various social components. 113 million adults in America have had an immediate family member incarcerated. Black Americans and people of color and people from low-income communities are the areas most often targeted by mass incarceration. Financial burdens encapsulate the families of the incarcerated in the U.S. alone, owing over $50 billion in debt. Mass incarceration not only impacts families, but communities in our society. I have so far covered what mass incarceration is and its impact in our society. Let me discuss my second main point, which lists the arguments in support of mass incarceration. Mass incarceration is argued to be for public safety, crime reduction, and for economically driven purposes. According to the Obama White House Archives published in 2016, improving safety and reducing crime are central goals for the criminal justice system. Mass incarceration is believed to be regulating public safety, crime reductions by keeping our communities safe from negative and potential influences and actions. Advocating for criminal justice reforms is one way to prevent and discourage individuals from engaging in illegal and criminal activities. Individuals who advocate for mass incarceration is our other word for justice. Those who commit the crimes must face the consequences and learn from their mistakes. Mass incarceration is economically driven for many companies and allows for many individuals in the workforce. According to the Prison Policy Initiative, almost half of the money spent on running the prisons goes to paying its staff. The government payroll is about 100 times higher than privately owned prisons. As well as that, government workers running the prisons also benefit from meals and healthcare benefits. Over 2.3 million people benefit from this. I have so far covered what mass incarceration is and its massive impact on our society, and secondly, the arguments that are in support of mass incarceration. In my final point, I will discuss the arguments that are against mass incarceration. Mass incarceration is argued against for its social problems, economic issues, and ethical issues. According to the article, Doing the Right and the Good, Thinking Against Mass Incarceration, incarceration rates are unacceptably high, affecting families and communities impacted by the loss of a person who could have contributed to their well-being economically and emotionally. Incarcerated individuals can have significant impact to the families that lead to broken and unstable homes, financial burdens, and in people and their children also result in emotional loss. Low-income communities and those who live in the poverty line are most likely to be incarcerated. In a video visualizing mass incarceration made by The Atlantic shows the disparities in the crimes involving ethical issues. Overcrowding in prison and jail cells results in inhumane and unlivable conditions because resources are not made available to them. Extensive punishments for crimes that are not violent don't have the rehabilitation resources that need them. And a lot of people debate that we need alternatives to solve these issues. In conclusion, I hope you have a deeper understanding of what mass incarceration is and its impact on our society, as well as several reasons as to why you should support or oppose these practices. I first described what mass incarceration is and its impact on our society. Secondly, I listed the arguments in support of mass incarceration. And third, I discussed the arguments against mass incarceration. Whether you are in support or against mass incarceration in the United States, one thing can be made clear. Awareness of these issues and the advocacy that you take for these issues in this society affects you and our community. Knowing that these issues affect us indirectly and directly as an individual and as a society as a whole is a debate that we cannot avoid. It is detrimental to understand that these are important issues.